chair of the Sultan County Alliance for the Unhoused. Basically, the county is purchasing some property at 1333 Fair Street. It's a residential commercial zoning that's zoned to permit a shelter. The money being used, as we talked about in the last town hall, it's money that is designated from the all your fees for recording fees and stuff. It can only be spent on affordable housing or shelter. So we're using some of that money to purchase the property. And then there'll be an immediate lease to the Sultan County for the unhoused, and then they will go with the sleep center. So with that, Don?
Thank you. Commissioner Whitman said, I'm Tom Ledgerwood. I'm the president of the Sultan County Alliance for the Unhoused. Our group was formed with the idea of creating a sleep center in Clarkston where unhoused persons could safely sleep at night instead of having to set up tents in parks or on other public property. And if we're successful in creating a sleep center, the city can outlaw sleeping in public parks and other public properties. We wanted to model our sleep center after ones that were successful in other parts of the state, particularly Walla Walla has a very successful sleep center. They bought a piece of property, they fenced it, it's locked for access. They only allow in and out who they want. And the sleep facilities are some basic Conestoga type huts. One-person huts. They probably have 25 or 30 of them on their site. We want to start with 10 to 15 to try to meet our local unhoused population. But we created the nonprofit corporation. We have a website. We have a board of directors. We're meeting regularly. We didn't have a piece of property. And we've been looking for a long time, and finally this piece of property became available on Fair Street. The address was given to you. It's 1333 Fair Street. If you go on 13th Street north and you get to Fair Street, you turn left and drive along till you're right across the street from Vista, and that's where the property is. It's 1.1 acres. There's a house and a garage and another outbuilding there. We'll probably use the house initially for our evening caretaker person, but we will fence the whole property so a neighbor to the south won't even see us. We'll hardly know that we're there, is our belief. People will come and go on the Fair Street side, so we believe that the residents of the sleep center, when they go out, will go along Fair Street and 13th and off to the places that they have to go. So. As the commissioner mentioned, the money for the purchase came, the county has the money. Every time you record a deed or a deed of trust or other document with the auditor, a certain amount of that money was collected by Olympia for housing. Went to Olympia and it came back, and Sultan County has money that can only be used for housing type of purposes. And so the county, Sultan County, will buy this piece of property. Earnest money has been paid. It'll probably close sometime in August. And the county will then own this piece of property. They will then lease it to our nonprofit corporation, and we'll start developing the sleep center on the property. So that's the plan. If we close sometime in August, we can start developing the property, and hopefully before winter gets on us too much, we'll be able to have a place for people to safely sleep at night. So be happy to answer any questions anyone might have about our center. You maybe want to come up to the microphone here so everyone can hear your question.
You say there's 10 units?
I said that the cost is about $3,500 for each of these Conestoga units, and we have some donations and grant money that we're working on. We want to start with about 10 of them, quickly expand to about 15 of them. When people were sleeping in Foster Park, the average people sleeping there was 15 per night.
Okay. That was probably my question. How many people are in need of it immediately?
That's the whole.
If we build 10 and there's 15 in need, then we have to build some more rather quickly.
Well, the Walla Walla facility is much larger, but they're a bigger city, and eventually we could expand. The property that we're buying, the 1.1 acre, will hold well over the 10 or 15 we're initially contemplating.
And are these structures built someplace and brought and placed on the property, or is this
very good question. There's a
or?
model or template for them, and we have the book on how to build them, and we'll start building the first one, and then hypothetically the second one will be easier than the first.
Who actually builds them?
we can have volunteers assemble them, and we have a materials
Like
list.
Habitat,
what
with their homes that they build, Habitat for Humanity, something like that, a group of people that come
You know,
and
I don't want to commit Habitat for
volunteer. No,
Humanity
I'm
or
not
any other
saying, but
particular, but
something
yeah,
like that.
volunteers
Volunteers.
would be expected. Organizations have been willing to help assemble these
okay.
kinds of units.
Okay,
Thank you.
The people will be living in them. The people that gonna stay in them should volunteer.
Well, and we'll be happy to have the help
Well,
if,
yeah.
if anyone else wants to do that.
Tom, for those of us that weren't here when we talked about the sleep center, would you explain a little more elaboration on not only the city but the county laws of why the sleep center is necessary so these folks can't be sleeping on public lands?
Yeah, I guess for those of you that don't know me, I'm a retired lawyer, but I can tell you that there were some United States Supreme Court decisions that came down. The gist of the initial decisions were you can't make it unlawful for people to sleep on public property if you don't have some other place for them to sleep. Okay, so cities started developing these sleep centers, and then if they had a designated sleep center, they could say it's now illegal to sleep in our park. Like in Walla Walla, you can't sleep in the city park downtown now because there is the Walla Walla Sleep Center. So without getting more involved in those legal decisions, that's the gist of the thing, is that if we have a designated area, then other areas can be outlawed, I guess, for sleeping. And people, it's a problem for people to sleep in, say, Foster Park. You have to set up your tent at a certain time at night, take it down in the morning, get it out of the park and stuff. So this would just be a place where they can come in and sleep and lock the door and be safe to sleep. They're not fancy. These little huts they have a locking front door. They have a basic bed in them. They don't have heat. If they have lights, there'll be a little solar panel for a single light. There's a back window. There's a storage locker for personal belongings, so if they leave during the day, they can lock up belongings and don't have to pull a wagon or a cart all the way around town. They do not have heat.
Why don't you let them bring their own tent and let them set up shop? You say damn thing.
I couldn't hear your question.
I said let them bring their own tent, set up shop.
We won't have people setting up their own tents. And
I figured that, but you're going to waste $3,500 on some sort of little hut?
yes, we're going to spend $3,500 on some sort of, it is a, it's better than a tent. It's a much improved sleeping situation for those people. I did hear the question, what about restrooms? And initially, we'll probably have to start with a honey hut kind of thing, but the property does have plumbing, and we eventually intend to have his and hers restrooms on site, and we could eventually move to having shower facilities also.
You don't eventually put in a urinal. Come on.
Where
Where are they supposed to have them? Where's the nearest restroom place they go?
there is a bill.
Ma'am, go ahead. If you want to talk, please come use.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I have a bunch of questions. My name is Jolene Cliff. I'm with Disability Action Center in Lewiston, but I serve both sides. I have a bunch of questions, but I will email the majority of them. My main questions would be, how many of the huts are going to be ADA compliant from day one?
ADA compliant from the start.
Yes.
We'll have to have some that have a ramp. The
Right.
standard one has a couple of steps up to it, and when we looked at the facility in Walla Walla, they did have one or more that did have a ramp, and so we understand we'll have to have some of that.
Some that are available, because there are a few of the homeless that are in wheelchairs that were behind Walmart. I think we all know that. So the other question I had was, how will reasonable accommodations for individuals that have sensory needs or mobility impairments, how will those be addressed, and who will they be directed to?
I didn't understand. How would what?
Accommodations, like for disabilities, how are those going to be handled, and who does that go to? Who's going to be overseeing that part?
That'd be,
Accommodations for disabilities?
well, the accommodation would just be the ramp, there go to the hut.
Yeah, we
So you're not going to accommodate all disabilities then?
Well, you have to look at the people we're serving already are mobile.
I'm not just referring to physical disabilities.
Which disabilities you're referring to?
Any of them.
Physical, if they can, all homeless
I mean,
people
it's
there.
part of my job, so I would help you navigate that, but like, I would need to know who the contact point would be for that. Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Wonderful. And then, what's the staff to guest ratio?
The staff to guest ratio,
Yes. So if you're gonna
Initially-
have 15 huts.
initially
max.
with, say, we open with 10, we would
Yeah.
expect to have, we'd open up at nighttime, let people in to sleep, and let's say our 10 guests go in and sleep.
Sure.
And then we have one person who is an all-night employee and lets the people in and then lets them out in the morning.
So how would a, like, let's say a fight breaks out, how is that gonna be handled with one staff? That
Well-
doesn't seem like it would be very safe.
We can call law enforcement if we
Right.
need to, and the history we've heard from Walla Walla and other places is that their number of police calls are extremely minimal.
Isn't there a requirement to have 2 staff on though, with a shelter
Well,
of any
you-
nature?
I'm sure you're trying to ask a question I don't know the answers to deliberately.
No, I sure am not. I ran, I could have told you this. I ran the warming shelter in 2021 at the Salvation Army. And so I know some of what our requirements were, and obviously state to state it's very different, but it's my understanding that there was always a requirement of at least 1 volunteer and 1 staff to equal 2 people when there's more than 5 people or more congregated in a homeless
And
encampment.
that may be, if we have to have volunteers, and there are people who are willing to volunteer to help us.
That's great.
run
That's
our
just what I was
center.
asking.
And there are strict rules for the center like Walla Walla has, and people who violate the rules don't get to stay at the sleep center.
Okay. And I'm in full support, don't get me wrong. I just have a lot of questions because this is,
Yeah. Ma'am,
Thank
ma'am, one difference between what we did there at the Salvation Army or what we did for One Step for Life and stuff, each individual will have a private lockable hut, security, so you don't have that
right,
people
which is
next to
great.
each other touching each other.
Right,
That
and
will
then
cut
you don't
down
have
on
that
that. Yeah.
conflict, yeah.
Yeah, that cuts down conflict.
So how long will people be able to stay consecutively, days?
There's no time limit, and we've asked that question of, say, Walla Walla
Mm-hmm.
or other places. Some people are there for just, a few nights. Others stay weeks, and they've had some in the months range, but the average isn't like year after year.
Okay, all right. I think that's all I have for right now. I will come back up if I have more.
Thank you.
My name is Heather Jackson, and me and my husband own the RV park adjacent to the south side. And I have multiple concerns. So is there a maximum amount of huts that are, is there a number for that, a max amount, and if everything goes swimmingly?
Well, I'm sure we can only put so many. It's
Do you know-
1.1 acres, and we
You don't know that number,
haven't
though?
calculated out. We're trying to start with, as I said, a minimum of 10 to 15.
Don't you think that number matters, though, as you're going into this, for the community's safety?
Well, we want to try to house the population of unhoused that we're looking into, and that number isn't in the, it's not like 50
Well,
huts.
space-wise, there should be a number. You should absolutely know a maximum that this facility could operate just on space. So that number the public would like to know for sure. Second, bathrooms. I purchased that park in 2017, and it was riddled with drugs and problems. And blood, sweat, and tears, we cleaned that place up. When COVID hit, and the rules were that people didn't have to pay rent and that they weren't enforcing the laws, the things that my family went through to bring that place back up to where it was safe for our community were monumental. So to hear that a homeless camp where you don't have bathrooms established, where people are going, I mean, is there no rules about drug testing before people are staying? We're just going to let them come to our community? Like, I don't understand how this is just seeming like a good idea.
Well, people need a safe place to sleep at night. I think we'd all agree on that.
And then
But-
I was
but to-
chased out of that property.
To your question about toilet facilities, some of the people that are down on 13th Street or Port Way or other places, they don't have toilet
When
facilities,
the
and I shudder
Walmart- when the
I
Wal-
know what they're using for toilet facilities.
When the Walmart facility was there, the overdraft was all the way to my park. I had regular people, the amount of calls that I had to make, constantly enforcing. And when you own an RV park that's open to traffic, the amount of drugs, the amount of things that were constantly happening, you're not understanding what you're bringing into our community. You're
over
not.
here.
Those people are already here in our community.
Those people will come. I have extensive background in foster care in metropolitan cities, specifically the city limits of New York City, Southern California, and I dealt with emancipating youth when it switched from 18 to 21. I dealt with homeless shelters. I understand how people move to them, how they flow to them, the way that this goes. It's not just a take the people that are here and give them a boost and then they'll be back on their feet. We're talking about transients. We're talking about drug addicts. Like, I am appalled that there is not more thought involved with this for our community's safety.
Well, you've made your point.
I just wanted to find out two things. These people that get this free sleepover, the first one is a lot of them have those vehicles that are parked down there on the port. Are they going to be able to park those in these sleep areas?
No.
Where will those vehicles be at?
Well, we're hoping that if people have a safe place to sleep, that some of these other tents and cars and things that they're sleeping in won't be used anymore. But the answer to your question is no, we're not providing parking for somebody's RV on our site. All that will be allowed at the sleep center are people sleeping in our sleep huts.
So they'll be able to bring if they have a car, they can go there with their car, right?
I don't know how much parking we're going to have for
Okay.
people who have a car, but the area for parking in Walla Walla was pretty slim. We'll have to have some parking for people that work and volunteer there, but our intent is not to be a campground of cars for people to sleep in.
Okay. And then I heard somebody whisper something. I wasn't going to ask this, but I heard somebody whisper it from the group here. These people, are they going to be there? Is it going to be free altogether with no expectations? I mean, it seems like we would want to try to encourage them to be a contributing factor to society, where maybe during the day, try to encourage them to do something that's positive, like get a bag and try to pick up some garbage around our county, That's all I'm just saying. It's just something that we just don't give somebody free, because I agree with this lady that just spoke. There's that Field of Dreams movie, build it and they will come.
Well,
and so that is a concern.
Answering that last question first, the studies have shown that if you build a sleep center, people don't come in from other jurisdictions. That hasn't been the case in Moses Lake or Walla Walla or other places. But your other question about services being provided at the facility, Walla Walla has evolved into a 24-hour sleep center, and services are provided there. The counseling centers come there and on site have rooms to do drug counseling and to do alcohol counseling there. Some of the medical providers, the equivalent of our Chaz clinic and others, come and provide medical services there to help people improve themselves and get out of that situation. So we would start with a sleep center, just basic sleeping, but the goal would be to expand as we could to offer other services there from the community.
Hi, I'm Sheila Dvorak, and I'm a social worker, and I've been a social worker in Asotin County for almost 30 years. So I validate the need for the homeless, and we need to address it. I have concerns of safety. I drove down there because I wanted to see what piece of property in the port was over $400,000. And I see that there is a house on it. You will need a hygiene station. I utilize the hygiene station for patients and people at the Salvation Army. They have a waiting list. You're sometimes 2 weeks out to get anybody in. So
Just like their washing machines and things over at the Salvation
Yeah, so
Army.
as they're washing their clothes, they can take a shower, and when they're done, they can get their clothes and be on their way. But they are backed up.
Walla Walla has that. They have a shower station and they have laundry facilities. In fact, I take that back. They wash their own bedding and stuff there, but they have an arrangement with a laundromat nearby where people can go wash their own clothes.
The other concerns I have are safety, as addressed by the other gal. So less than half a block down the street, there's a housing complex, low-income housing. So there's kids playing and everything like that. So I'm curious about What kind of background check, if any, is gonna go into this? Do you notify people if you have an offender move in? How do you displace families between your offenders and families that might be coming through there? There's also a brand-new 72-unit complex that's going in just 1 block away over on the port. And I looked at that application process for those families to get in there, and they can't have been evicted, they can't have any criminal background, anything like that for these low-income families to get a foot up. So I'm just concerned about who's coming in there and who's policing that, because our police are going to be quite occupied with keeping the safety of that area.
Well, our police were much more occupied by the people sleeping in Foster Park, and we had reports to our committee about the average daily number of calls to Foster Park, and that was just an open area. We will have a controlled area where people have to come in through the gate and can't leave during the night and will leave in the morning. Is there a possibility that 2 people will get in a fight with each other? It could happen, and the police could be called, but what we've seen is that that hasn't happened in these other sleep centers. It doesn't encourage more criminal activity, it actually tends to limit it.
And to the comment that if we open it up, they will come, there is some partial truth to that. We call it Greyhound therapy. I mean, that's, Spokane at the peak of COVID dismantled their 600-person homeless camp, and they kind of filtered. That's when we saw our explosion down here. So between the opening of UGM and this one, your population will increase. We have a comfortable climate, and yeah, people will eventually buy the tickets for people because they're going to send them to where the services are.
Well, and that argument has certainly been made, but it hasn't been proven to be true in the places that have these facilities.
Well, you're living in the areas where it's happened.
And UGM is a different kind of facility, and I'm glad they're opening the new facility, but it is a high barrier facility where people have to commit to a long-term program. Sir?
So I just want to clarify, you did say that people are stuck they're not allowed to leave the location throughout the evening, correct? They're able to come there and sleep, but they're not allowed to leave and come and go willy-nilly, correct?
It is a locked facility. If you come in at night, let's say it's 8 o'clock and we open at 8 in the morning, you can't leave until 8 in the morning, or if you do leave, you can't get back in.
Fair. So essentially, you just will have a line of the first 10 people able to get in, or will there be like a sign-up process ahead of time? How does that work exactly?
I'm not sure we've gotten that far, but it's probably more of a first-come, first-served kind of thing to get to have people in there. And then the Walla Walla facility had I guess an overflow room, kind of some bunk beds in a room for men, and if they had a couple of men they couldn't give a hut to, they could sleep there. And we do have a building on the property that could be used for something like that.
Yeah. So I actually can't speak to the specifics of what you guys are doing, but I can say that I've lived somewhere where the Conestoga huts have been utilized. I lived in Eugene, Oregon for quite a while, which has an absolutely horrifying homeless problem. I will say that the Conestoga huts were not where people were blowing up their tents with propane tanks. That's not where the stabbings and drug overdoses were happening. Those tended to be some of the least decrepit areas. The reality is this doesn't get rid of homelessness, but you can at least concentrate these things so you can care for them, and that's what I've noticed. The reality is that people are going to be sleeping somewhere, and this being an environment where they can at least be monitored and they have the privacy to, people can't attack each other through a tent. It's easy to split somebody's tent open and attack them or rob them or whatever, and those are the kinds of things that are happening anytime unsanctioned homeless camps congregate. So I'm curious to see how this will go forward. It sounds like you guys have a lot of things to figure out.
Well, and you mentioned the main things. People are going to have to sleep somewhere, and if we have a safe place, that's better than somebody sleeping in a tent. So I appreciate your comments.
I think the security aspect of the Conestoga huts, because I've looked at them and looked at how they're constructed and whatnot, I think that security really changes things because it just decreases the crime. It makes people less vulnerable. So,
and there's no propane heaters allowed in there. There's no heat in there.
That's what changes everything.
There's a basic light. Maybe we may put a solar panel up for a basic light, but these are pretty basic accommodations. You can't bring in a propane heater, or there's no electricity.
Well, and
so
all winter when I was living in Oregon, there was explosions and huge fires and major issues all up and down the train tracks and whatnot. At least this is one area where that won't be happening, where you can consolidate it. At least it's not on the brush. So I'm curious to see how this falls. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again.
Hi.
All right, so you guys know me very well from several city council meetings when Foster Park was happening. We had a group, Foster Park Advocates, because several families couldn't even have their kids play outside. There happened to be a sexual assault. There was tons of drug use. And this was people in their tents. And then the incident when they were at Walmart was totally unsanitary. It cost the city and the county a whole bunch of money to clean that up. And you know that they were not using restrooms. If there's not a restroom there and it's a honeypot, they're not going to use it. Most of them are probably just gonna go and do the meth in the hut, do their thing, whatever, and they're not gonna care. But my question is, you're gonna have 10 huts, you're gonna make it illegal to sleep in the parks, so you have 25 people who are homeless. Where are those other 15 gonna go legally, other than like on the steps of Walmart or businesses or in back alleys on private property? And if they have a car or a motorhome, why do they need a sleep hut? The sleep huts don't have heat either.
Their motorhomes don't have heat either. The
Right.
motorhomes you see parked on the street, they don't have working bathrooms. If you look at the front of them, they have a rope to tow them with. They don't have, they are a basic shell that they got very cheaply somewhere, and we hope that people will get rid of those in favor of sleeping in a sleep center.
So
and,
if they get
and
rid of
lastly,
those-
I'm not going to argue with you that what was called Camp Chaos behind Walmart was not an ideal situation at all, and it certainly was not organized. There was no one, anyone could come, anyone could go, anyone could have any kind of propane stove or whatever in there, and we're not advocating for anything like that, and I can't agree with you more that that was a bad situation.
So what do you do if you have a mother and 3 children, and
This
there's
is-
only one hut?
First of all, this is for adults only, 18 and above. And
It said homeless population.
well, the homeless
Women out of work do get homeless, and they have children, and they don't want to lose their children.
They're
So
not
this
el-
is the
they're
homeless
not-
population.
they are not eligible for our facility. Children
But
are
any
not,
drug addict
children
is.
are not eligible for our facility. There are more needs.
But any meth head is.
Could you let me finish answering?
Yes.
There are facilities in the valley that cater to mothers with children, whereas other adults who don't have children don't have such things available, assets available to them. So we have to focus only on adults.
Okay, that's very rare. I've housed people in my own home who have not been able to have homes with kids. I've housed elderly. I've housed teenagers. Some of them have been a complete disaster area that I wish I had never tried to help. But I'm also looking at this from a medical standpoint. They're not going to stop using drugs. They're not going to stop using needles, whatever. These people are going to sleep in this bed. You say they're going to go ahead and launder them. What kind of beds are these? What are they going to do for bed bugs? What are they going to do for, like, diseases? Are you going to allow 2 people in one hut?
Okay, I'll answer each of those questions.
Okay.
First of all, there is a platform in each of the Conestoga huts, and there is a waterproof type mattress that is provided, and bedding is provided. Walla Walla said they found it better to give traditional bedding instead of a sleeping bag because they're easy to launder. So I think your question about cleaning up after somebody who's been staying there, you're going to have to clean the bedding before the next person is in there. There are not 2 people in a unit. It's not a boyfriend-girlfriend type of situation. They're single only. Walla Walla says they have, and in fact, if your girlfriend comes into your unit, both of you could be kicked out of the sleep center. If you create a relationship and you want to apply, Walla Walla said they have allowed, they'll put in a little bigger platform and a bigger bed, and a couple can stay there, which actually freed up one or the other of the other units for somebody else. But it's much more limited, so this is not for couples, these are individual sleep huts.
Okay, and now that you have paid this amount, a very large amount for that piece of property, are the properties around them going to go up in value?
Are the properties around?
Yeah, the properties around them, because of
Well-
the price you paid for that, are they all going to rise in value?
Well, I can't speak to what, we all know all property values in the county are going up. That's kind of a given, but we locate, you'll have to, if you want to ask a question, I'll have to ask you to come up so we can all take it. But properties around us are mostly commercial type of property. There is one single-family residence to the immediate east.
Okay, and so you guys already bought this property, didn't talk to like property owners around or businesses. The RV park, and the problem I have with that is the owner of the RV park, we have a lot of travelers come in where I work. One of the reasons they won't go to your RV park and they go to other places is because of what launders around your RV park. That's not fair to her, and it's only gonna get worse. But you're paying top dollar for a property while her property is gonna hit the ground.
Well, what you're
Is there
telling
a
me
way
is
to reimburse
her property already has a certain problem, and you're automatically assuming that the people staying in our sleep center are going to cause problems at her property, and I don't know that that's a fair assumption.
It's going to.
And also, it may be the same people who are staying down in the 14th Street area. I don't know who's in her area, but.
Okay, because I have also a cumulative about the same amount of acreage, a barn, horses, tons of huts, a 4-bedroom house, 2 bathrooms, and my value, when I did a market value, did not come in as high as your 1-acre property.
My park holds 27 families. There are children everywhere on that back wall. When the chaos camp was going on, do you know how much stuff was dropped off in my park? And we are blocks away from Walmart. If you don't think that those people aren't gonna come to the camp, leave their shit everywhere along the way, and I'm not gonna be calling the police, I'm not gonna be put in danger, my tenants aren't gonna be put in danger, you are sadly mistaken. You do not understand this population. They were on Fair Street. The danger, the things that went on. You don't live in this environment or know what this class of people goes through, and you're going to make it so much worse for all of them. You just don't understand the reality of this.
Well,
You have no answers to all of the questions.
I can
either.
comment on the question about people's belongings. If people stayed in Foster Park and had to leave during the day, they carted a wagon off towards Walmart with all of their belongings in it. People who stay at our sleep center and intend to come back, there are some small locked lockers or something where they can leave their property and don't have to cart it all over. So if that answers that question.
Hi, I'm
Ms.
Lisa
Sutherland.
Larrabee, Sutherland, and our family has 4 properties on Bridge Street that back into the property that you're purchasing.
Well, 1 or 2 actually, but
No, we have 4.
I've seen the aerial photograph.
We have
of
1342 Bridge, 1350 Bridge, 1324 Bridge, and 1330 Bridge.
But only
And
one
they're
of them's
all
directly
affected.
behind ours.
3 actually.
a sm-
1324 and 1330 back up exactly to it. That's 2 properties.
And that's TK.
And then we have, right, TKT Towing is on 2 separate lots
Right.
Yeah.
that we own.
TKT
Then we own
Towing.
1342 Bridge, where the meat market is, and there is a distance that we back up also to that lot. My whole point is, I have no doubt that the reason behind this is that you are wanting to do good for the community, you're wanting to do good for these homeless people. I have no doubt of that. I'm just saying I think the approach is quite naive. I think it's uneducated. I think that if you want to really pursue something like this, you ought to hire people who are professionals. I think you're going at it from all different directions, hoping that something's going to work. I know people in Walla Walla who are affiliated with the Women's Christian housing, whatever they call it there. They tell me that they have women that come to them due to the sexual assaults that occur in the Walla Walla facility that you're modeling after. They say that they have anybody who comes to their Christian shelter for women has to be totally fumigated and all of their personal belongings because of all the infestation of fleas that come from this facility that you're modeling after.
That's not what we've been told, but you
Well,
hear things and we hear
You're
things.
getting a rosy picture from the other people, probably the commissioners there. I'm telling you what I've heard from staff who work in another facility in Walla Walla. So I have no doubt that your intentions are good. I know they are.
Well, I appreciate it. We
But
are
I'm
all
just
trying to
saying, I
find a
think
place for
that
these
it's been
people to sleep.
gone.
And there's nothing in it for anyone on the committee. We're just doing
No,
a service.
I know that. That's why I'm saying, I know your intentions are good. But so are ours. We're trying to better our community. We're putting money and time and effort and thought into bettering the properties that we own. We're trying to go forward, make things better not only for ourselves, our families, our community. I mean, we love Clarkston. We grew up here. I don't think that what you're doing, as well-intentioned as it is going to, you're not going to get the results that you're hoping for.
Would you not build a sleep center? Would you just have people continuing to sleep wherever they want to?
I'm not saying I have the answer. I'm saying that I would find someone who knew more about it than you folks do.
Well, we've done
Okay.
what research we can with other facilities all over the state. I'm not contending that I'm any kind of a sleep center expert. I'm working on the knowledge of other people. The Walla Walla one has operated successfully for 10 years.
They may be successful, but if you talk to others down there, it's not without its own set of problems, okay? And I also know from personal experience that enabling addicts leads to nowhere but the grave. And I personally have been involved in that situation twice. And our family made the terrible mistake of enabling. So I've buried a brother before 60. I've buried a niece before, what? Before 40. And you know what we did? He lived in a beautiful home overlooking the Clarkston Golf and Country Club. My niece, my parents paid to keep her in an apartment in Seattle. But guess what? It all just led to the grave. Maybe if somebody had said, why don't you work for it? Why don't you do something for yourself? Instead of trying to be so helpful, maybe they would have made it, maybe not. That's just my opinion. Thanks.
Well, thank you, and I'm sorry for your family's tragedies.
Okay, well, just one more comment, and we're going to wrap this up for tonight.
Well, this one's kind of running downhill to the commissioner's side of it. So you're trying to create or solve a problem, but it's going to create a problem for you guys. So now you get anybody in the outlying area, people start moving in their trailers, in their lots, that's against county code, and they say, hey, we just started a sleep center. What's your solution then for that? We've been dealing with campers, kids not going to school, no water, no sewer, anything. And it took county law enforcement over a year to get rid of them. We've got people living in the middle of CRP fields in a camper. Code enforcement wouldn't even go talk to them because they'd lock the gate. He didn't want to walk in, bad knee. So where's this quit going downhill?
No? Well, one thing is, go ahead.
Okay, well, if I was asked about this tonight, my only comment was going to be what we first started out with. It was stated that you can't kick someone off of public property unless they have a place to go.
Yeah.
That was my only silver lining in this, okay? And I'm agreeing with almost everything everybody's saying here, but the problem is, what's the solution? What we're trying, okay? Now, I'm not on that alliance. All I was like, the money that's dedicated toward this has to be used for the homeless, okay? So I was in agreement, let's try this, okay? Is it gonna work? Are they gonna have everything up front fixed at first? Is it gonna solve all the homeless problems? Hell no, it's not going to. But I think it's going to help us some of that. I mean, we have people from the city of Clarkston here, that, they had to deal with foster park people. They couldn't make them get off there because there's no place to go. So is it gonna help that? Obviously, yes, for 10 or 15 people. I don't think we're ever going to want 50 people, 50 us in there, and I don't know how everything is going to work. Everything that everybody's brought up tonight is pretty valid. Do you have to have toilets? Sure. Are you guys going to have those right away? No. I mean,
No,
if people can volunteer to help out, get that going, this might be a help. I mean, I'm no farm kid, ranch kid, I've worked for everything myself, and I agree with somebody said make them work for it. How's that gonna work? I mean, seriously, I agree there, but this is a try, okay? Right, Tom? This is a
Yeah.
try.
Yeah, we certainly don't contend we have all the answers,
No,
but we're trying to give some answers.
and real quick, let me
Yeah,
finish.
just last one from the public. yeah.
Last thing
Listening
too we
to-
had was, the jail, we had a heck of a time getting it to where we wanted it, it's up there now. Nobody wants anything like this in their backyard. I agree 100%, especially people own around it. Hopefully, this will be kept clean, It's not gonna be the Soton County Commissioners, our thing to run, okay? One of the things I said, this needs to be signed over to this alliance. The minute we purchase that property, they're gonna be in charge of it, because
Yep.
I'm not trying to put you, but we're not gonna be in charge of any of that, so I just wanna state, it's a problem. How's it gonna get fixed? This maybe will help a little bit, I hope.
And this is in the city limits, incidentally.
Yeah, okay.
Last question?
Yeah, my name's Sean Jackson. Like my wife said, we have the trailer park there. Multiple things here come to this situation. I heard that it was for affordable housing, not just the homeless. We don't have to put this money there. We didn't have to overpay on this property for such small gain. I think there's a lot more questions than answers. I did see, while you're splitting hairs on how many properties this lady owns that, joined to it, I probably noticed you didn't own any of them.
Well,
And I doubt any of you guys own any of the properties. I don't know where you live, don't know the properties you own, didn't study the maps as much as you did, but I can almost for certain know that anybody up here that's in charge of this has nothing to do with any of the properties down there. I commend you guys for taking this on. I don't think anybody back here has the right answer, but this isn't the right direction. And we all who are against it would like for you guys to come up with a better solution, please.
Well, I did see a message from Ms. Sutherland who sent to our committee, and I actually looked at the property to see whether there were 4 or 5 properties. It primarily borders on one of your properties, and it does border on a second one. It's only
Yeah.
right, and the back line of the property is 100 feet wide, isn't it, Chuck?
Something like that,
Something
yeah.
like that. But I agree with you that, but I actually thought when we were looking at the property of you and thought that there is Larrabee property over there, and fortunately it's commercial type property, that they don't have anything that comes back up against us. And when we put up a tall fence there, it's not even going to be seen. So
But we're gonna know it's there. You can say you're not gonna see it.
Yeah.
The whole community's gonna know it's there.
there.
Including you, wherever you live, you're gonna feel it too.
All right, but there's when you look at a problem like this, you either do nothing or you try to do something, and our organization is trying to do
Man, we're
something.
trying to wrap up
I
here.
know, but
Do you have
I
a comment
live-
that's
I live-
different than what we've heard?
I live there. I have 4 kids.
Yeah.
And I'm terrified. You guys didn't ask anybody about any of this. You just did it. And I pay property taxes. I pay to live there. And then you're bringing this. Put it in your backyard.
We're not
Why will
bringing.
you not put it
We're
in
not bringing
residential?
anyone.
Don't
These
put it
people
in
are
the
already there.
Okay, yes, but you're going to make them line up even worse. It's going to be
Yes,
way
they are.
worse.
We went to
You
look
have
at this
no-
property, and
you
there were
have no
2
direction.
RVs sitting across the street right in front of a Vista.
You have no direction. You can tell you're just hoping it works. That's not okay for the people that do live there. It's impacting us, not you. It needs to have a little bit better of a plan.
Well,
And maybe let the residents around know, not just blindside them with everything.
we've been open with the community. We put an open
And you're
house.
having
We
no
put on
drug-
one of these
you're having-
forums
you're
here
not
months
having
ago
any
to
drug
explain what
control.
we were doing.
I have little kids that are going to be right there. Little kids. Are you guys going to take responsibility?
Do you
when
live
something
next to
happens?
this property?
I live across the alley. It's right. I can see it. I know exactly where it's going.
And don't you think that the homeless people are already in your
Our
neighborhood?
neighborhood right there is pretty good. You do get walker buyers, but I know it's gonna blow up. It's gonna blow up.
Basically,
Yeah, like we're here, this is just
We're
gonna happen.
trying to-
Right, exactly.
Well, I apologize if I didn't explain it well, but we think the planning for these sleep centers is actually pretty good. So thank you for your input, everyone, tonight. We understand it's a volatile subject. As I said, this committee that was created, there's nothing personal in it for any of us. We're just trying to deal with a problem of homeless people in our community. And we're always looking for volunteers to help us, so if that's a request to
Okay.
be on the
All right,
committee.
that's it. The only other thing to add to that is they're working closely at the Walla Walla Sleep Center, and they've learned a lot from them, and they are helping them, and they are running a center, so they're getting a lot of good advice not to make some mistakes they made. So we're moving forward as a trying to solve the problem. Okay, thank you for coming tonight, and drive safely.
Excuse me, I'm right behind you. Thank you.